Welcome to Rockstar Doctor Life. I'm Melissa Longo, and each episode, my guests and I will bring you fresh, fun ways to rock your life as a health professional and create a business that aligns with who you are and the life you want to live. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Rockstar Doctor Life. I love having these conversations, and I'm thrilled today to be talking with a chiropractor who I have known for most of my career in chiropractic, and now she's practicing in what appears to be a really beautiful exotic location, and I can't wait to hear her journey that took her there, as well as her experiences practicing chiropractic in the islands. So welcome to the show today, Dr. Lise Cloutier.
Thank you. Hi, Melissa. Thanks for having me. Super excited to be partaking in your podcast. I always love helping the chiropractic profession.
Well, so tell us a little bit about, for the capsule version of who's Dr. Lise, what are you doing right now? Take us into a little bit about your day-to-day life and how, what got you to the islands.
Oh my. So I quickly browsed through your website this morning, and I laugh because, I love the name Rockstar Life. Was it Rockstar Life, Dr. Life?
Yep, you got it.
Yeah. So I was like, wow, I'm actually living that life to a T. So that's a great name.
So this is why you're on the show today. You're going to tell us your secrets.
Exactly. So that's why I thought that's why she reached out to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I live in practice. Most people would say I'm living the dream that a lot of people would love to have, but never have the guts to do. So I live and practice in the wonderful, beautiful island of Turks and Caicos, Providenciales, Turks and Caicos in the Caribbean. So yes, I definitely feel like I live the rock star lifestyle that a lot of chiropractors aspire to. I made the move 9.5 years ago. The Reader's Digest version of my story. My parents took me to the Caribbean from the time I was 5 years old every winter. I'm from a small town in Northern Ontario where it's like -40 from like December to March. And so when my dad would have a break at work, he would say, he would tell my mom, say, book a vacation. We can leave like in 2 days from now. I'm done. We got to break up winter. So my love of the Caribbean started at that young age of 5. And then when I became an adult, we always went away on vacation. Got married. Even when I was a starving student, I worked and I would scrape up money to go to escape winter, even for 5-6 days or a week. And anyway, so traveled all over the Caribbean from a very young age into an adulthood. And I think it was 2006, I came to Turks and Caicos. My kids were literally 2.5 and 5.5 years old. We did that family beaches vacation, and I just totally fell in love with this island. Like within 24 hours, I looked at my then spouse and I said, okay, this is where we need to be. Like there's an energy here. There's they talk about these energy vortex around the world. Mm-hmm. I think Turks and Caicos is one of those locations. So I definitely felt it deep in my soul and my physiology. And we went back to Canada and I said, listen, we need to put up our practice for sale and move to the Caribbean. And we had a huge high volume practice. We had a coaching company. We coached chiropractors, so we were very busy, very well known. We had a huge enterprise, and we started talking about this and telling some close friends and colleagues, and they're like, "Are you guys crazy? Like, who? You guys have it all going on here." But one thing I wanted that I felt like was evading me and escaping me was now fast forward a couple of years, now my kids are, 7 and 11 years old. That's actually the age they were when I moved to Turks. And I found, they were growing up so fast. And I found when we practiced in Ottawa, time was just flying by. And literally we had a great practice at a great coaching company. But life was just too insanely busy. We were nonstop 7 days a week. There was no downtime. Even on Sundays, you were running your kids to hockey. I had 2 boys in hockey. So you can imagine, you're working, 4 days a week in your practice. And then every 6 weeks I was on a plane at a different city to do our seminars, come home. And then it was if we were home, it was hockey, and you're trying to have family time with the kids. And all of a sudden I woke up and I said, you know what, in 7 years from now, my eldest is going to be leaving me and going to university. And I wanted to kind of buy back time, and I wanted to slow down time. And after a couple of years of talking about this, obviously we put up our practice for sale, but when you have a large practice, it doesn't sell in 5 minutes. So it took several years to sell our practice, to the point where I told my then husband, I said, listen, I'm so tired of talking about this. We either do this or we shelve this. Like, I can't keep talking about it anymore. So it was now fall 2010. We came back to Turks and Caicos. And next thing you know, we go see this office space. It was a brand new building. And right before we left to come back to Turks, that morning we met, and here I was signing the lease agreement for the office space, and then finalizing everything with the, for the business license and the work permit for me to work legally in Turks and Caicos. So we handled all that with an immigration lawyer. So that's kind of how it started. In fact, our practice hadn't even sold yet, but I told my husband, I said, you know what? One of us has to take the leap forward and put it out to the universe that we're serious about this move, and then watch, maybe our practice will sell like that. And so I came first, but it still took a year for the practice to sell. So that first year I was alone with my children in Turks and Caicos. I hired a local girl to be my CA, trained her. So there's just me and her. So you can imagine, in Canada, I had a team of 7. We had an office manager. I had an in-CA, an out-CA, an exam doctor, a tech, a floater in between. Like, we had a huge practice. We had a naturopathic doctor, a couple massage therapists. Now I'm in Turks, lone doctor, 1 CA who was like brand new at chiropractic. Most people in Turks and Caicos had never even heard the word chiropractor. And I'm alone with 2 young children. So I had to pivot and shift and make huge changes in my practice to make it work for me, right? So we have seasons in life, like we go through stuff. Like when I first graduated, it was me to worry about, right? So, man, if I can recommend one thing, I'm not sure of all your demographics, but I'm assuming if you're coaching chiropractors, you're probably attracting a lot of young doctors fresh out of school, and they're looking for guidance. And I would say one thing, like when you're fresh out of school, you're not married, you don't have kids, all you're worried about is your student loans, like that's the time to hustle hard for a few years to really lay down the foundation. Because then when life throws you curves, you get married, you start having children. If you have a solid foundation, you won't get derailed so easily in your practice. Because if the wheels are already loose and then you throw in additional stuff in your practice, whether it's like you're adding ancillary services, or you're adding another doctor, or you're adding a massage therapist or a naturopathic doctor, and then you get married on top of that and you start having kids, if the foundation's not solid, right, the wheels are going to start falling off the bus.
Yeah, absolutely. I love so much of what you just said, Lise. So many things I want to pull apart there. Listeners of this show are all ages and all seasons in practice. And I don't think it matters what stage of practice you're at. That reminder that you need to have, and for me, a solid foundation is not just working when your time is available, when your kids are, before you have children, when your kids get older. It's the foundation of knowing what you want in practice and knowing who you are as a doctor, what your business values are,
exactly,
what your personal values are, and essentially what's the kind of practice that really works for you. And when you have that foundation set, then everything gets so much easier.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. When I say foundation, like, know what kind of practice you want that works for you. Have your solid procedures and systems that work for you. And then if your life throws you a curve, then also be able to be open enough to be adaptable and flexible. And
Yes.
This pandemic is a great example of that. The people who are thriving and doing really well are succeeding because they've pivoted, they've adapted, they've made changes to fit the new, the situation we're currently dealing with. And that's normal. That's called life.
Yeah, I agree. And I love that when you said that you realized, as much as things were thriving and you were so busy with coaching, with practice, with kids, with hockey, there was a pace to it that's a little, frantic. And I feel like that we are recording this, in September. It's kind of post-COVID, I want to say, but yeah, I know that when doctors were locked down and I was having conversations with them, and as they were coming out of it and going back into their practices, there has been a dramatic shift in priorities I've observed in not only my personal life with friends and loved ones, but also just in business life. It's like, look, I had time with my kids that I didn't expect for 2 months. I don't want to give that up again. So
exactly.
important point to always step back and use this as an opportunity to think about what kind of practice life do you want. And to me, that is absolutely the rockstar doctor life. It's like deciding what you want in your practice, where you want to live, how many people you want to see, the hours you want to work, and building what works for you rather than working in a business that doesn't really connect with you. What I really want to know, Lise, is there's a certain amount of fearlessness that comes from, it's required rather, to follow your dream. You had the dream of being in a practice in Turks and Caicos. You were ready to do it, single, without your partner there, with single mom, with revisualizing the whole practice model. You're ready to take that jump because it was something you loved. Can you share with us a little bit about like, how do you make that kind of risk, right? Or what's your tip for other doctors? Because so many docs might want to take a similar risk, but they're afraid, right? So where did you find the courage to do that?
I'll be honest. I rescheduled my flight 3 times at the last minute to make my final move to Turks because I wasn't fully organized within Canada and Turks and Caicos. So I won't lie. It was like probably one of the scariest things I've ever done. It took a lot of courage. Where do you get fearlessness from? I've done so much coaching. I think like my personal growth and development have just made me rock solid, I think. And then, like anything, when you're trying to make a big life decision, what I always do is I take a piece of paper and I do a list, a line down the middle of the sheet. And on the left, I write pros, and on the right, I write cons, like pros and cons. And then if the list of pros outweigh the list of benefits, outweigh the negatives, then I judge it that way. Listen to your heart and listen to your gut and your intuition. That will always steer you clear. You can never go wrong.
Right. And to me, I agree. And every time I've had hard decisions to make, you get quiet and you put, I always say to clients, like, just feel your feet on the ground and breathe and just get settled, get out of your head, get into your heart, because our head can tell us all kinds of stories and our past experiences can filter it and other people can get in your head. But if you get quiet with yourself, you'll know what the right direction for you is. And it might not be what anyone else tells you is right, but that doesn't matter. You have to have that little bit of fearlessness and that little bit of a ton of courage to follow what's right for you. So
absolutely.
I think it's awesome. And give yourself, obviously, tons of credit for making that kind of jump. And, to go into that style of practice with your boys at that point, you said were 7 and 11. Yeah. How did they adapt? I mean, they were hockey players living in a big Toronto, big Ontario city. Were they open to it? Or like for docs listening to this and thinking they want to maybe relocate their family somewhere. Do you have any tips about how you navigated that with your sons?
You know what? When I got pregnant with my first, I said to myself, like, you got to make your practice work around your priorities. I did the same thing I told myself and my spouse at the time, I said, our child, we have a busy life. We like to be busy. We like to be involved in our profession. We were like flying to the US every 6 weeks. We were clients with CJ Mertz with the waiting list practice. And when I got pregnant and I said, you know what, that child is going to have to be flexible and adaptable, and they're just going to have to roll with it because, I knew that I still wanted to have a busy life and be heavily involved, and because I was so passionate about my profession and helping people. So I knew that wasn't going to go by the wayside. So I think my children they had no choice in the matter.
Right.
I've trained them to be a flexible and adaptable since they were born. People say, oh, kids love routine, and you got to give them the same bedtime every night and, like raise them in this little perfect box. I didn't do that with my children. I did not.
No, I think it's a life skill. I mean, this is bringing to mind a really great book. And listeners, I will try to put it in the show notes. And it's a book written by an entrepreneur and a psychologist. And they specifically talk about the fact that children these days, more than anything else, need to learn the skills of entrepreneurial life. They need to learn adaptability, problem solving, creativity, because the work world is very different. I mean, look at how your own career has shifted over, I'm going to guess maybe 20 years, because I've been in practice 20 years almost.
25.
Okay, there we go. But you think about the skills that were required for you to take risks, to build a company, to hire a team. Like those are skills that, school doesn't necessarily teach you. So
exactly.
I'll put the reference into that book, but I think adaptability is certainly a key. And when you think about yourself and what keeps you still like really inspired to be the kind of mother that you are, how you show up with your people in your practice. Where do you get that inspiration from these days?
You know what?
It's a challenging time. I get it. Some days it's hard to get inspired.
I'm not bothered by that. I mean, I was really stressed at first. I felt like I had to like post stuff in my tribes here in Turks and Caicos to wake the world up. And I got really stressed and I got really beat up on social media. And then I was like, okay, this is not working. And then I got over the whole thing. And I think it was like just letting go, surrendering, like, cause this thing is so much bigger than all of us. But for me, I think like by the time I left my practice in Canada, I was like feeling kind of burnt out, like it was a great practice. It was highly successful, but I felt like I was burning out because we had such a big team. Every week we had like a 2-hour team training meeting. And when you have a big team, if one staff's not getting along with the other, they come crying to you. And I was like, okay, I feel like my life force and my life energy is getting sucked out of me because I have my own 2 children and now I'm having to babysit staff at work and managing that whole, big machine. So when I came to Turks, I was like, I knew I wanted to just reinvent myself and, scale it back and really simplify my procedures, go back to the basics. And I literally fell back in love with practicing, and one of my best mentors always said, one of my favorite mentors always said, make your vocation your vacation. Well, I took it literally, didn't I? I moved to Turks and Caicos and started a practice there.
But so you know what? It's so powerful to make that kind of shift. Your own sense of joy and happiness day to day.
It was almost like reinventing myself and creating more time for me with my children. Like I got my weekends back. I had so much more quality time with my kids, which nurtured my soul and nurtured my heart, and it restored balance. So when you have that, you're going to be much more joyful and excited to wake up Monday morning or, and go to work Monday afternoon or whatever your schedule is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, most listeners know my story and, the track that I was on. And then I said, I want to get off this train. I want to simplify my life. I love being a chiropractor. I love educating people about health and wellness. And when I simplified my life and merged my home in my practice into the same building, my kids at that point were similar to yours. They were 10 and 6. And it simplified everything. I got back to the basics of why I loved chiropractic, but I also got to redefine my business model, which became much more profitable than it ever was before, but also so much simpler because I wasn't dealing with all the other roles that I was wearing. I didn't want to manage people or a huge team of people. I didn't want to manage other practitioners. I don't really want to manage. I didn't want to be a landlord and have property to manage. I just stripped away all the roles that for Melissa, I didn't want to do. And for some docs, they love it. And for docs like that, where you are, and awesome. But for a lot of people, you end up taking on these roles because life throws them at you. And then you have to take a step back and go, I don't like this. I don't want to do this. So how do I reinvent my life so that it actually works for me? And the more people that do that, your joy and your love for your practice goes up, which means that your practice success typically coincides with that as well.
Of course, because if you feel balanced and happy and healthy, you're automatically going to vibrate at a much higher frequency. And guess what? Then everything gets easier. You just attract the right patients. You just one of my favorite mantras now is everything comes to me with ease, joy, and glory. And literally every time I say that, something happens easily in my life. Actually, I just bought a new vehicle a week and a half ago. And then I was like, okay, I got to list my car. And there's a couple things that are a little bit askew with my car. It's 11 years old. When my kids were here, in fact, my youngest opened the car door. We were leaving the dentist and the whole handle came out. He goes across the parking lot, Mom, he puts up his hand and he's holding the whole handle of my car. I'm like, okay, time for a new vehicle, right? Yeah. So there's all these little things, and I was thinking, I really have to get those fixed before I list the car. And then Mark, my current life partner, but I adore deeply, he says, just list it, just list it, see what happens. Well, literally within a couple hours, my car was sold. Guy goes, I'll give you $6,000 cash for your car. And I'm like, great, done deal. And it's done. He was happy. He needed a better vehicle for his girlfriend, who's a mobile hairstylist. And I was just like, okay, that was easy. You think of the easy button at Staples business, and I just go, everything comes to me with ease, joy, and glory.
Well, it gets easier when you're aligned with things, right? You've spent.
It's a great mantra. You guys can all use it.
Yeah, I think that's going to be my new one. Why not? It's I think it was one of my my mentors always used to say, like, what you dwell upon expands, right? So if you're always focused on the difficult things in your life, the stressors, and you forget the big picture as to why it matters to you, or even if you're going through something difficult, and listeners, I mean, most of you know, I went through divorce, I went through rebuilding my practice, the stresses and the strains financially, personally, that go with all those things. Well, you know, the vision, the reason I got through them was because
Yep.
I was focused on the outcome. I was focused on the life I wanted to live at the end of this path. And you know, you've had even just a simple thing you just said recently, you know, challenges. You say something on social media and someone attacks you. We've all had times in our personal life that we feel attacked or we feel stressed, or we just, you know,
Totally.
personal things will affect how we show up in our practice. So can you give us sort of your strategy with how do you overcome that, and how have you been able to reroute yourself or get yourself grounded again if something challenging pops up?
I think the older I get, obviously you get wiser. There's a really good book, the Four Amendments, is it? Don't take anything personally.
The
You
four
know,
agreements. Yes, the
the
four
four agreements.
agreements.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
four agreements. Okay, one of the agreements is don't take anything personally. The older I get, the better I get with that. So, you know, when somebody lashes out at me, or I just like, okay, they have their own thing going on that I might not be aware of. People have their own filters of how they view life. So, you know, I just don't take it personally. When you do that, it just, you know, it bounces back at them. Then they got to deal with it. And I don't mind that, especially if somebody's been really mean. You know, I'm not going to take on their stuff.
Well, and it's often, I often think about where's their pain coming from. So if someone attacks
True.
you or me or anyone, I think like, what's really going on for you that is you're lashing out. I mean, I used to teach my kids that if someone was being aggressive to them or mean or, you know, kid playground kind of stuff, I'm like, I wonder what's happening in that little child's life that's making them act like that, right? Like, where is your behavior coming from? And just trying to always rise
Exactly.
above and,
Yeah.
and be the better person, essentially. So if you were to say from, you know, your 25 years now, congrats, of experience in practice, there's a new doctor listening. What would be, aside from, you know, hustling hard before you have kids and defining your life the way you want it and trying to grow a practice, do you have any other specific strategies that you would recommend for new docs or new grads?
Gosh, don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
I would have to say, like a lot of docs are making it. I just actually joined this Women of Chiropractor, I don't know, some chiropractic Facebook group, and I see some of the posts and some of the questions, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna hit my head against the wall. Just like some doctors are making it so much harder than it needs to be, and chiropractic is like such a simple thing. Like, it's, you know, and it should be even simpler now more than ever, because people are craving connection. They're craving, you know, heart to heart. They want, gosh, they want somebody to hug them. Like, people are like, this whole social distancing thing, don't touch me. I have
Yeah.
spouses who are like, my spouse won't even touch me. Like, she's totally following the rules to a T.
Oh my
These
God.
people are craving interaction. They're craving a hug. They're craving touch. So we're like in one of the best professions ever. You know, we're heart to heart. We're innate to innate. To me, chiropractic equals connection.
Yeah.
So keep it simple. Keep it simple. You know, we have an opportunity right now to really grow in our personal practices and the chiropractic profession as a whole globally, really, I think.
Yeah, I think with anything, there's always opportunity. And I keep thinking about that myself. Like, where are the gifts here? Where it's, you know, between deciding how my son is going to get educated, because he's now, you know, staying home right now, he's doing online learning instead of being in the public system,
Uh-huh.
to revising, you know, the procedures in my practice. And even with me, like, you know, my practice volume and my size, I still had to make some changes in scheduling because I needed to respect distancing and people not crowding the office and blah, 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 all the rules and regulations that many of us are, you know, make us cringe. But
Yeah.
there's a slowness to the pace, a less frenetic pace in the practice that I'm really enjoying. I've got more time to talk to people. And if it means that I have to stay half an hour longer to see everyone that I would have seen in a shorter amount of time, I'm okay with that because it fills me back up too. And I feel like you said, people are really craving that connection and the ability to talk and share with someone that they don't get to do face to face right now with people the way they used to be.
Yeah, I would totally, I've noticed that as well. And I have to agree with you. Like, I feel like I'm going home even more fulfilled and more heart filled because I feel like I've touched that extra maybe 35 seconds or minute you spend hearing somebody out or just connecting with them. They're feeling a lot better and it makes me feel better. We're sharing, we're helping, you get what you give.
Yeah, and I think that's another one of the reasons why we're blessed when you have work that you love. And I think the doctors that I know that love their practice and love chiropractic are really aligned in the kind of practice style that works for them. So, I wanted to certainly acknowledge you for creating your own Rockstar Doctor life and inspiring others today. I think we've actually been okay with our connection here. So I want to respect, I don't want to take it for granted. And I think, out of respect for your time as well, we're going to wrap up our conversation here today. But were there any last thoughts you had for doctors listening who are in the middle of maybe trying to get through something difficult or revising their practice style or just looking for a little dose of inspiration? Is there anything that comes to mind for you that is a kind of a recurrent theme or a mantra that you find yourself saying a lot?
Two things. If you're a young doctor, definitely find a mentor or a coach. And don't be afraid. There's a lot of chiropractors coaching now. There's for you're an example of a coach. I think you're doing more one-on-one, and then you do a few programs online. And then there's obviously huge practice management companies in Canada and the US. Just don't take your time. Interview. Don't be afraid to interview. You're hiring them to help you. So have a few conversations. Make sure you align with whoever you're thinking of hiring. And when you get off the phone, do you feel better? Do they inspire you? Do they make you want to be a better person? Do you feel motivated? I think that's really important to find the right mentor and the right coach. Mm-hmm. And then have a few chiropractors in your community. We need a community, mm-hmm. Close friends in our field that we can confide and bounce things off, just, in more of a friendship, fellowship kind of format as well. And then, so we need that sense of community. You need that help if you want to accelerate your results in life, for sure. Even the professional athletes have they have a mindset coach, and they have a basketball player has a coach who will just teach him how to shoot the hoops. And then they have a coach who teaches them how to dribble. And then they have the mindset coach. They have all sorts of coaches. Mm-hmm. So, and your coaches can change as you progress and you hit your goals and your milestones in your practice. You're going to evolve, and you should evolve as a human being and mm-hmm. a chiropractor. And then the big thing that's freed me up is, make your practice work for whatever stage of life you're in. You'll be a lot happier, and your patients will pick up on that. Because when people come to us, especially now, I find a lot of my new patients or practice members, they're coming to me because they're stressed, they're anxious. They've been feeling the stress of the pandemic. Things are changing daily. We don't know what's going to happen next. And so if I'm a strung out, stressed out doctor, who wants that? Nobody's going to want to go get care to a doctor who's a wreck. You know what I'm saying? So make sure you practice a lot of self-care. Do what you need to do to ground yourself, whether it's meditation, whether it's listening to, certain sounds or music, or, I like to listen to healing frequencies on YouTube. Mm-hmm. There's meditation music. There's all sorts of stuff available for free now, mm-hmm. actually. So we have to be grounded more than ever, so that when our patients and our practice members come in, and even our staff, they need to know that we're grounded, we're mellow, we're cool. We're not all frazzled, because then everybody else gets frazzled and we're not helping anybody.
Yeah, I love that. And so many docs forget about themselves, right? And it's easy to do when you're dealing with a high volume practice and kids and life is busy. But whatever little tips you can do to stay, again, focused and grounded, even if it's a 5-minute walk in nature, or, some deep breathing, or reading something inspiring, you have to do what you can at any stage of your life to stay focused. And thank you for that reminder, because I feel like a lot of people need it more than ever right now.
Totally. Yeah. And then keep it simple. I find now, I've been in practice 25 years. I want to enjoy life more. Life is flying by. I'm 51. My significant other, he's a real estate developer. He's a former chiropractor, actually. Huh. But we want to travel more. We want to enjoy life more. In February, I got a locum doctor. which was scary for me because it made me realize how attached I am to my practice. So that was really freeing for me to let go a little bit of my practice. And I came back and my patients were fine. Nobody died. They were all happy. So that was a big stretch for me. I did that in February. So live your life, like do what you love and help. You're going to help a lot of people, but make sure you're happy for sure.
Yeah. Don't let it. So don't set it so it's the other way around.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for your time today, Lise. As always, it's great to connect with you. And listeners, be sure to connect with Dr. Lise if you have other questions. You can find her. There'll be connections in the show notes there, how to reach her. And certainly, you know where to find me if you have feedback about the show. So thanks again for your time today, Lise. I'm quite appreciative of it.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope I was of value.
I hope you enjoyed today's show. Find out more about today's guests and everything else that we talked about in the show notes. You can also find all this content and so much more, including videos, blog posts, and how you can work with me on the Rockstar Doctor Life website. If you haven't yet reviewed the show, we'd love it if you headed on over to iTunes, subscribe, and leave us a review about what your thoughts are about future episodes for the show and what you like best. Feel free to connect with me on Instagram at Melissa Longo DC and of course on Facebook. Thanks again for listening. We'll see you next time.